Hello everyone, Bethelite here. And as a lot of people are aware, Jehovah's Witnesses have found themselves in the news again because of a sexual pedophile, someone that preys on children. Now, if you're not aware, the police had to raid the Kingdom Hall. Yes, the police had to raid the Kingdom Hall. If you're not aware, if you haven't heard, somebody by the name of Anthony Escobedo he's a pedophile, Jehovah's Witness. He's a Jehovah's Witness and a pedophile, right? And he's been accused of having child pornography. That's some of the things that people have in the Kingdom Hall, molesting children and full-on the rape of children. Now, this is illegal. That's obvious. I shouldn't have to state that. However, there's more to it. The police raided the Kingdom Hall. The police brought Anthony Escobedo in to prison, but more people should be going to prison. More people should be going to jail that are Jehovah's Witnesses, because in America, it's not just the molesting of children, the raping of children, as horrible as that is. You're talking stuff that just strikes fear in the people just to think about. And not just that, as horrible as it is, that's not the only thing that's illegal. Have you ever heard of grooming? Grooming children or people in general for that type of activity is also illegal. If you groom a child, or again, you can look this up in the dictionary. Grooming, one of the definitions is when a pedophile is basically preparing the stage so that he's able to molest or do something sexual with a child, right? Again, I understand how horrible this is, and that this is something that could trigger a lot of people, because we're talking about some of the worst things that can possibly happen in society anywhere in the world. So I understand that this is something that it may be triggering, but it's important to listen to it. Police need to look into this further. Expect a call. Police need to expect a call from me and anybody else who is more than willing to help with the investigation. Because the grooming process, and the police will agree, anybody in law enforcement and in the legal process, they'll agree, the grooming process is illegal. You don't have to get to the point of molesting a child or doing something sexual with a child if you are just preparing the stage to be able to do that and you get caught. That's illegal. You understand what I'm saying? The process leading up to molesting the child or doing anything sexual with the child is illegal. So Jehovah's Witnesses need to be investigated, not just for the actual molestation of children, but the grooming process that leads up to it. Now, Jehovah's Witnesses, by Watchtower, have been prepared or essentially groomed to believe that children are of secondary importance. Essentially, Watchtower is helping the pedophiles. That protecting your children and focusing on your children are of secondary importance. As a matter of fact, for me growing up, it was not unusual for children to grow up not even hearing the words, "I love you," from their Jehovah's Witness parents. It goes beyond that. But Watchtower has been against children for 100 years. They have been against focusing on children as a priority for over 100 years. For a very long time in Watchtower's history, they have been progressively programming its membership, or progressively repeating over and over and over again, using Bible scriptures to deceive people's minds that they shouldn't even have children. Stop me when I'm wrong. Watchtower, for the longest time, was telling people, beyond not washing your children around other Jehovah's Witnesses and not protecting them from other Jehovah's Witnesses, they were telling them not to even have them in the first place. This Jehovah's Witnesses, Watchtower, have been very anti-children for a long time. Not only did they preach that the end of the world is close, so don't even have children. Wait till the end of the world or their Armageddon to take place first. They're teaching that God is going to wipe out everyone who's not a Jehovah's Witness, everyone who doesn't listen to Jehovah's Witness. They would prefer you wait until after Armageddon. Don't even have children. So there are Jehovah's Witnesses who have been influenced by Watchtower, and as a result, did not have children. I'm talking, they made the decision to not have children, a decision that major, that impactful in their life. They made that decision based off what Watchtower was telling them. So if a person, a man or a woman, would make the decision to not even have children based off what Watchtower told them, is it not reasonable to conclude that a man or a woman would not protect their children around pedophiles and other people who are members of that Jehovah's Witness religion if Watchtower told them it's not a priority, that this is not something that takes place around here, so you don't really have to protect your children? All of those things would be part of what we would call the grooming process, preparing the stage for the pedophile, which is illegal. You can't prepare, you can't do that. So the grooming process, preparing the minds of the membership to believe children are not a priority, children are something to be pushed aside until the end of the world. Children are not to be focused on. Children are not your primary focus, or protecting them are not your primary focus if they even tell you that they get molested. This is secondary to making sure Watchtower, the religious organization, is your primary focus. Jehovah's Witnesses have been taught that Watchtower, their cult, what they, their religious group, Jehovah's Witnesses, they were taught that that's more important than your children. That's setting the stage for the pedophiles. You got all these parents who are literally being brainwashed from having the same affection for their children that anybody else in society would have. This is something that takes place over the course of many years. Information constantly repeated over and over and over and over to Jehovah's Witnesses, to where they believe that their children are of secondary importance, which is why if a Jehovah's Witness molests one of their children, there are people who would rather not tell the police, not let it get out, because they would rather focus on the cult, the group, the reputation of the cult over their children. This is not natural. This is not how the majority of society is. It is how Jehovah's Witnesses are, because they were taught to be that way. That should be illegal. Everybody involved should be prosecuted. Everybody involved should be prosecuted that had anything to do with the violation of a child. Everybody involved should be prosecuted. Jehovah's Witnesses not only groom parents to believe children are of secondary importance, don't have children, as they would say in this system. That alone is odd. That's strange. But if you can embed that in someone's head that kids are of such a low importance, you don't even want to have them, then look at the pattern of teaching of Jehovah's Witnesses. They also taught and teach that if your child needs a blood transfusion to live, that you ought to let that child die. Follow me with this pattern. A, Watchtower teaching you shouldn't even have kids. But B, if you have kids and they need a medical procedure to live called a blood transfusion, just let them die. Now, this is something else that is very unnatural. Not having kids, that's unnatural for a lot of people. Letting your child die, that being a teaching, that your children are of such little importance that you just let them die if they need a blood transfusion. Our interpretation of the Bible is more important than your child's life. That is part of the grooming process, and that is part of the reason why we're in this situation. It is unnatural. Parents should naturally want their children to outlive them. The natural parental instinct should cause a person to, if it comes between them and their child and a car is coming, they're going to run in front of that car and push their child out the way. That child's life is more important than the parent's life. That's just natural parental instinct. If something's going on and you hear danger and a parent hears their child screaming, the parent is running towards the danger. They don't care about the risk to themselves. They're going to save their child. That is how the majority of society feels, because that's your natural parental instinct. Well, Jehovah's Witnesses, that cult, what cults do is constantly bang information into people's heads that's not natural. And eventually they disarm this natural instinct in people, to where they'll fight against that natural instinct to want to protect their children. And do we have proof? Yes. The teaching that parents are to let their children die. I'm talking babies even. Rather than for that child to get the medical treatment that the child needs to live a normal life. The child could live a normal life if they just had a medical procedure. There's a good chance. There's a good chance. But a Jehovah's Witness is taught, it's hammered in their head. Children are, you can let them die. What religion would even teach something like that? Unless they had prepared people over time to believe that that sort of thing, putting a child's life off as not even that important, is normal. They've normalized a person not practicing their normal parental instinct. Part of that normal parental instinct is to protect the child from pedophiles. That's your normal parental instinct. Nobody that's not in my family that I don't know is just going to be around my children. Watchtower has over time neutralized that, which is directly assisting pedophiles. Watchtower, Jehovah's Witnesses, directly assist pedophiles with that. What else has been a teaching of Jehovah's Witnesses, right? The holidays. Again, we're getting into a whole pattern of teachings that all involve children, that all involve treating them in a manner that's just this secondary. They're not as important. Watch Jehovah's Witnesses, Watchtower. That's the same thing. If you're not aware, that's a cult. Jehovah's Witnesses are what they call themselves. Watchtower is like the printing company where they have the magazines that they're standing next to carts with and knocking on your door trying to hand you the magazines. That's Watchtower. But Jehovah's Witnesses have taught for a long time that holidays are bad. Now, a lot of holidays are just for kids. A lot of holidays, they're not worshiping false gods or anything. In our society, it's just commercialized for children to be able to enjoy cartoons, enjoy games, different things like that. That's something that's focused on amongst Jehovah's Witnesses. So if there is a Thanksgiving activity for children, if there is a Christmas activity for children, if there's a Halloween activity, whether or not it involves ghosts and whatnot, it could just be candy. The Jehovah's Witness would have their child be isolated in the library. Isolate my child somewhere else in the school rather than let them eat some cupcakes. Isolate my child away from everybody else in the class because everybody else in the class gets to stand up and sing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and laugh and have fun. I'd rather my child be off alone somewhere than to be able to enjoy themselves. Now, whether a person believes holidays are important or not, you should believe that your children are important and how your child would feel being isolated from everybody else in their class. We're all going to go have fun. We're all going to eat cake because it's such and such's birthday. We've got ice cream. We've got cake. Do you understand that children would look forward the whole day to being able to go to school, play with their friends, have fun, eat some cake and have some ice cream, maybe some sodas, laugh and joke and just be able to have fun with their friends. Oh, they will look forward all week to that. The Jehovah's Witness will look right at their child and tell them, you can't go. You can't have the cake. You can't have the ice cream. Because That's a birthday, and birthdays are the most evil thing in the world. Like, these people have systematically over time focused on eliminating children as a priority, eliminating things children enjoy as something that's allowed. Oh my, a birthday. You can't have that. It was taught also that young people, right out of high school, their focus should be serving at Bethel. Bethel is the cult's headquarters in New York. It's taught that instead of going to college, your child should come work for the cult for free. Do you see what I'm talking about? This pattern of teaching that Jehovah's Witnesses, all those parents allow it because to them it's normal. It's a subsect of society that believes things are normal that are not normal. It is not normal to believe that you shouldn't send your child to college because, oh my, terrible things might happen to them. So instead of sending them to college, send them to Bethel. Send your child to Bethel where they can be around a bunch of old men and nothing could happen to them there. Think about the ridiculousness of that concept. If the child goes to college, horrible things might happen. It's the end of the world. If they go to our headquarters, nothing bad can happen. And that goes into the direct grooming of children for pedophiles by teaching them that Jehovah's Witnesses are not capable of molesting children, of trying to take advantage of them sexually. This has been taught, and it has been taught for a long time. Why else do you think every year parents, instead of sending their children to college, are trying to send them to Bethel? Is because they believe nothing bad can happen to them at the headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses. They didn't just make this up. This concept came from somewhere. The concept that only Jehovah's Witnesses are God's people and only Jehovah's Witnesses have a high moral standard and they all live by this high moral standard. And if anybody did not live by it, Jehovah would just mystically remove them or get rid of them or protect everybody. Which means the parents don't have to protect their children because Jehovah will just eliminate pedophiles from their midst. Just poof. All the pedophiles in the congregation will disappear because Jehovah is going to protect them. Send them off to New York. You could live clear on the other side of the country in California. Send your kid to New York to go and work for free for a bunch of older men at the Jehovah's Witness headquarters in New York called Bethel. They're taught that. Send them there because that's safer than sending them to college. Right? Make sense of it. Make sense of it. I've been to Bethel. I've seen the alcohol that they have at Bethel. I've seen all the older men just salivating at the mouth of all these young boys coming in every year. And they all believe that every older man there is harmless. So that older men can get them to go off alone with them places and things like that. All that goes on at Bethel. Now, do Jehovah's Witnesses protect their children from any of that? Does a Jehovah's Witness parent, before sending their kid off to another state to be around a bunch of other kids and older men for the most part? Do they sit them down and tell them, listen, you should not go off alone with any of these older men? No, they don't teach them that, because Watchtower also, this is a big part of the grooming process, the assisting of pedophiles, teaches that it is apostate to tell anybody anything negative about their religion, about the cult of Jehovah's Witnesses. Follow what I'm telling you. All those teachings I was telling you about not having children, don't even have children. If your child needs medical treatment like a blood transfusion, just let them die. These are facts I'm telling you here. If your child is invited to a birthday party at school, everybody else is going to be going, have them off isolated somewhere in some room, shut with the door shut behind them, away from everybody where they can't have fun. You got all this going on. Don't send your kid to college. You got all this going on. And keep in mind, a lot of the parents don't send their children to college, not just because Watchtower tells them to or Jehovah's Witnesses tell them to, but they don't want to spend the money. Again, their child is just not a priority to them because they've been mentally programmed or prepared to believe that kids are just not a priority. So they don't want to send their kids. A lot of Jehovah's Witnesses don't want to send their kids to college because they don't want to spend the money. They'll say, oh, well, colleges are all bad and bad things can happen there. Bethel has bad things that happen there. Fights, everything. They're not concerned about that. So Jehovah's Witnesses over the course of time have got all these teachings that your child and how your child feels is not a priority. Treat them any old way. But then also they have a teaching where talking negative about the religion, anything about a person in the religion, anything, is apostate. So basically stating that there are Jehovah's Witnesses that are pedophiles and you shouldn't leave your child alone with a Jehovah's Witness that they're not related to. Stop sending them over people's houses to spend the night who they're not even related to. Just because the person goes to your church or goes to your cult, the Jehovah's Witness Kingdom Hall, does not mean you should leave your kids alone with any and everybody in the whole Kingdom Hall, in your whole religion. Saying anything to the contrary of that would be viewed as apostate, and the person doing it would be tossed out. So essentially, if you speak out about protecting your kids from Jehovah's Witnesses that are pedophiles and into all kinds of sexual insane things, you'd be expelled. Let's do a field test. Again, the police department that is investigating, the police department that went and raided the Kingdom Hall. Oh, I'll be a honorary deputy. Give me a little badge and I'll get my papers out and files out and I'll assist with the investigation. Right? All you got to do is interview some of the people who are in the congregation, not just elders. Don't tell the elders, hey, I want to interview such and such and such and such, because then they'll sit them down and say, don't say this. They'll try to cover everything up. Let's do some interviews and talk to them and see how uncomfortable they are about talking about how Jehovah's Witnesses have pedophiles just like everybody else. They're uncomfortable talking about that there are Jehovah's Witnesses that do things that are very depraved, just like there's Catholics that do things, just like there's Baptists, just like everyone else. There's Jehovah's Witnesses that do sexual things to children, and they shouldn't be going off alone with them to stand next to carts or go into what you guys call field service, knocking on doors alone with them, none of that. Watch how uncomfortable they are. Listen to the individual members of the congregation and see if they will even repeat that back to you. They may be afraid to say it because they think if I say that I need to protect my child from other Jehovah's Witnesses, that's apostate. Their religion taught them that stuff is apostate, that you're not allowed to. That is grooming to the max. Grooming, assisting a pedophile, or the pedophile by themselves grooming a child. Anybody grooming, anybody setting the stage for pedophilia, that is illegal. And law enforcement needs to know that Jehovah's Witnesses have got a long history of teaching that children are of secondary importance. They used to have a song, "Gifts of God Our Children Are," and a part of that song is, he says to use the rod. So all the Jehovah's Witnesses, if you're an older Jehovah's Witness, you remember this. Gifts in God our children are, to bring up will require lots of skill. But then it says, we should use the rod. And then everybody, all the kids in the congregation, everybody knows that means you should spank them. So when I was growing up, it was normal to watch parents grab their kids because their kids were sitting through a long 2-hour meeting. They weren't allowed to have a program for children. They got a cartoon now. I'm not talking about the cartoon. I'm talking about the actual service. A lot of churches have got services for children so the kids can have something to pay attention to. The Jehovah's Witnesses didn't care about that. They just wanted to look and see if their kids were able to pay attention and follow along to the adult program. And if they weren't, what did you see? Let's be honest, everyone. You saw that parent take their child screaming all the way to the bathroom, and they would beat the child, bring the child back, sit them down, and then watch to see if a little kid can follow along with an adult program. The service was for adults. It wasn't made for children. But they're just beating their children if they didn't follow along with the Watchtower. My stepdad used to sit next to me. What paragraph we on? If I didn't know what paragraph we were on, I was in trouble. I might get a beating when I get home. The Jehovah's Witness religion in itself is very, very unhealthy for children. One of the reasons is you are protecting a pedophile. If there's a pedophile and you're teaching, it's bad to even say that this person is a pedophile because he's Jehovah's Witness, and we can't say anything bad about Jehovah's Witness because that'll make us look bad. That's protecting pedophiles. That's part of the grooming process and making children and parents believe that a Jehovah's Witness can't molest them. A Jehovah's Witness can't be a pedophile. That, along with all the other teachings that were anti-child, and now you have millions of people who essentially are all grooming and preparing the stage for pedophiles to molest children. Everybody involved should be locked up. All the Jehovah's Witnesses who, if you take the video, the news article on YouTube, if you take that video and show it to a Jehovah's Witness and they refuse to look and they walk off and they try to shun you, they should be arrested on the spot. X-Wall Kill Bethelite signing out.